Hey guys, welcome back to our daily devotional series as we walk through the book of Daniel together. Today we're looking at Daniel chapter 8 and we're continuing along with these visions that Daniel is having of the end times. And so chapter 8 opens up, Daniel gives us a time frame. It says in the third year of King Belshazzar's reign. So this is back in Babylon again. Daniel has this vision, and he's saying that he's standing on the banks of the Ulai River and he looks up and he sees this ram standing beside the canal. And this ram had two horns. He makes note that these two horns were different sizes. One was smaller than the other. And as we go through this chapter, we find out that this ram actually represents the kingdom of Persia, or the Medo-Persian Empire. That's what the two horns represent, Media and Persia. And so this ram is representing the Persian Empire. And Daniel describes it as charging over the face of the earth and conquering much of the land. And as he was observing in verse 5, he says, suddenly a goat appeared and came from the west, running across the earth but not touching the ground. So it's moving very, very fast. It's not even touching the ground. This new goat is conquering quickly. He said the goat had a conspicuous horn between his eyes. And it says the male goat acted arrogantly, and when it approached the ram, it shattered the horns of the ram and trampled the ram underneath. And so what we're seeing right here is that there's another nation that's going to rise up after Persia that will be so great, so powerful, and so fast. It conquers pretty much the known world, so much so that it actually does battle with Persia and destroys Persia. Now, this kingdom is the kingdom of Greece under the rule of Alexander the Great. If we look back in history, we can actually see that this takes place. Alexander came from the west. Persia kind of came from the northeast of the Eurasia area. And as Alexander comes in, he conquers basically the known world at the time very, very fast. Alexander the Great was an incredible conqueror for his time. And so he comes in and he destroys this ram. And as Daniel's watching, he says that the large horn which represented Alexander was broken and a fork came up in its place. And historically, this is accurate too. When Alexander died, very shortly into his reign, he was not very old, his kingdom was split up into four. And we see this, that four horns come up in its place, pointing toward the four winds of heaven. That's another way of saying that these horns basically were looking towards every end of the earth. And so Alexander's empire was the entire earth at that point, everything that could be conquered. And it was split up amongst these four people that would come up underneath him when he died. And so Daniel sees this, and in the midst of these four horns, he says one of them looked to the south and the west. And so if you know the geography of the Middle East, that's actually looking towards where Jerusalem is, and so where Israel is. And so this king that comes up in the place of Alexander conquers Jerusalem and the area of Israel, and he commits a bunch of atrocities. He goes in, he desecrates the temple, he does away with the sacrifices, he rises up against the prince of princes. And so we see that this king that raises up is incredibly dishonorable towards God. And so Daniel's watching this vision and he's overwhelmed and he's asking what's going to happen. And so all of a sudden, as he's standing there, a man cries out and says, Gabriel, reveal this vision to this man. And so Daniel looks and he sees another individual there, Gabriel the archangel, and Gabriel comes forward and begins to explain to Daniel what this vision means. He reveals the fact that the ram was the Medo-Persian Empire, that the goat represented the king of Greece, Alexander the Great. And as he's watching, he talks about this horn that comes up after Alexander that is so evil towards Jerusalem and towards the Israelites. In verse 23, he says, a ruthless king skilled in intrigue will come to the throne. His power will be great, but it's not his own. He calls outrageous destruction. He'll succeed in whatever he does. And we continue down because it seems like this king wins. Like, he's getting his way. He's destroying everything we know. But in verse 25, Gabriel says this. He says, yet he, the king, will be broken, but not by human hands. And so we see that this king that comes up after Alexander the Great is overthrown, but not by human hands. By God's sovereignty and by his divine will, this king does not last. He's allowed for a period of time to rule and to commit such atrocities, but he does not get to rule forever. God comes and overthrows him in the end. And Daniel writes this at the end. He says, I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for days. Then I got up and went about the king's business. But I was greatly disturbed by the vision and could not understand it. And so what we see in this case, Daniel has this vision of these warring kingdoms, and specifically this king towards the end that is just so cruel and evil. And we look around the world, and we've talked about this already a little bit, it is so easy to look around the world and see the evil that runs rampant and to lose all sense of hope. Like, this is truly as good as it gets. There's war everywhere. People are just screaming. They're angry at one another. People are fighting. Lands are just fighting over their ideals. Is this all that we have to look forward to in life? And Daniel was even so overwhelmed, he was literally laying there sick. Nowadays we can look at that and say that's very similar to being anxious or depressed. Like, if you are clinically anxious, clinically depressed, you might just lay somewhere feeling almost sick, like, I can't even deal with this right now. But the beauty of this passage is we see that this evil king does not have ultimate authority. God is the one who has ultimate authority, and God ultimately comes in and overthrows this king. And in yesterday's passage, we saw that in the end, God comes and establishes his reign with his son forever at the end. God does win. Good does win. Right now, we have evil kings, we have sickness, we have famine, we have disease, we have pain that is existing in this world, and that is the result of the fall, the decision that all of mankind really made in Adam in the garden. And these are the consequences for that. And so we look at, should we choose God or not? This is the consequence of not choosing God. We live in a world that has heartache, a world where people get sick, a world where people get lost, a world where people hate each other, where people fight. That is not God. That is the result. You want to know what it looks like not to choose God? This is the world right here. But God in his grace and beauty gave us beauty in this world as well. And he promises that in the end, to make things right, to establish his rule, a good rule for all time. Satan does not win. Death does not win. This king does not win. God is ultimately the one who wins. And that should give us more hope than anything. Guys, I love you. I'm so excited that I get to talk with you tomorrow night and Thursday night. I hope you're doing well. I've loved hearing from some of you guys the past few days just about how life is going right now. Seniors, congratulations. I know you're getting towards the end of this year. Some of you guys are already picking up your caps and gowns. I'd love to talk to you and hear about just what's going on. If you just want to kind of talk and have a good time, feel free to message, comment down below, tell us what you think of this passage. Message us on Instagram. I'd love to hear how your day is going, and I will talk with you guys later. Love you guys.